Every morning for nearly 10 years, someone left a basket of food outside a poor widow's door. No one ever saw who did it. When the basket suddenly stopped, she realized she had spent a decade thanking God without ever thanking the person he had used. The truth she uncovered would leave an entire village in tears. In the quiet village of Umudara lived a woman named Ada and her 7-year-old son, Chinedu. Life had not been kind to them. A few years earlier, Ada's husband had died unexpectedly, leaving her to raise their son alone. Since then, every day had become a battle just to survive. Before sunrise, Ada walked to a neighboring village where she washed clothes, swept compounds, and carried heavy buckets of water for families who could afford to pay. Some days she returned with a few coins, other days with nothing at all. One evening, after searching every corner of their tiny kitchen, Ada found only an empty basket and a clay pot with nothing inside. Chinedu looked up from the floor where he had been joined with a stick. "Mama, what are we eating tonight?" Ada forced a smile. "I'll figure something out." But she already knew there was nothing left. That night, Chinedu fell asleep. She quietly stepped outside. She whispered a prayer she had never prayed before. "God, I'm not asking for you to make us rich. I'm only asking you to help me feed my son." Just before dawn, 3 gentle knocks echoed through the silence. Knock, knock, knock. Ada hurried to the door. When she opened it, no one was there. Only a woven basket resting nearly beside the entrance. Inside were fresh yams, beans, tomatoes, smoked fish, and a bottle of palm oil. Enough food to last several days. She searched the empty road. Nothing. Whoever had left it was already gone. She spent the morning asking every neighbor if the basket belonged to them. Each person gave the same answer: no. By sunset, everyone agreed that if no one came looking for it, she should keep it. That evening, for the first time in weeks, Chinedu ate until he was full. Before going to bed, he smiled at his mother. "Maybe God heard your prayer." Ada looked at the dying fire and smiled. Maybe he did. The next morning, there was another basket, then another, and another. Every single day before sunrise, fresh food appeared outside their home. Never too much, never too little. Always exactly what they needed. The entire village soon began talking about the mysterious basket. Some believed it was an angel. Others thought a wealthy traveler had taken pity on Ada. An old woman simply smiled and said, "Kindness always finds its way home." No one understood what she meant, not even Ada. But every morning, before carrying the basket inside, she whispered the same words: "Whoever you are, thank you." She just didn't know the person she was thanking was close enough to hear every single word. As weeks turned into months, Ada became determined to discover who had been changing her life. She woke before midnight, she hid behind trees, she watched from the window. She even asked Chinedu to keep watch from the back of the house while she waited at the front. Every attempt ended the same way. The moment they looked away, even for a second, the basket appeared. It became the greatest mystery Umudara had ever known. People from neighboring villages came hoping to solve it. Some hid in nearby bushes before dawn. Others climbed trees overlooking Ada's house. One hunter even claimed he would stay awake the entire night. By sunrise, he climbed down rubbing his eyes. I never saw a soul. Yet somehow, another basket was waiting by the door. The stories only made the mystery grow. Children whispered that angels walked through the village before sunrise. The elders simply shook their heads. Whatever the truth was, no one could explain it. Years passed. The little boy who once asked if there was food for dinner slowly grew into a hard-working young man. Thanks to those mysterious baskets, Chinedu stayed in school, learned a trade, and eventually became a skilled carpenter. For the first time in many years, Ada's home no longer felt empty. The leaking roof was repaired, the cooking pot was always full. The fear that once followed every sunset slowly disappeared. Still, every morning the basket arrived. Ada never stopped wondering who was behind it. She often imagined meeting the stranger one day. Sometimes, while walking home from the market, she'd buy an extra loaf of bread or a piece of fabric. If I ever find them, she'd tell herself, I'll finally say thank you. Those gifts remain untouched in a small wooden box beside her bed, waiting, just like she was. Then one quiet morning, she opened the door and froze. Nothing. No baskets, no vegetables, no fish. Just an empty doorstep. She smiled to herself. They've probably overslept. She went back inside. The next morning, still nothing. By the third morning, a strange sadness settled over her heart. It wasn't because she needed food anymore. She and Chinedu could now provide for themselves. What hurt was something else. For nearly 10 years, someone had carried hope to her doorstep every single morning, and she had never once looked them in the eyes, never learned their name, never said thank you. Days turned into weeks. The baskets never returned. Then, one afternoon, a young boy came running through the village. Auntie Ada, Papa Okeke is very sick. He keeps asking for you. Ada frowned. For me? The boy nodded. He said, Please, don't let me leave this world before she comes. Ada didn't understand. She had barely spoken to the old farmer over the years, but something in his message made her heart race. Without another question, she followed the boy toward the small mud house at the edge of the village, completely unaware that the mystery she had carried in her heart for 10 years was finally about to be answered. When Ada stepped into Papa Okeke's small home, the room was almost silent. An oil lamp flickered beside his bed. The old farmer looked frail, his breathing slow and heavy. But when he saw Ada, he smiled. You came. Ada knelt beside him. Of course, they said you wanted to see me. With trembling hands, Papa Okeke pointed toward an old wooden chest in the corner. Open it. Ada lifted the lid. Inside were hundreds of neatly folded papers. Confused, she picked one up. It was a market recipe. Yams, beans, palm oil, smoked fish, rice. She opened another, then another. Every receipt listed food. Everyone was dated. As she turned through the stack, her hands began to shake. The dates stretched back, year after year, until she reached one that stopped her cold. It was dated the morning after her husband's funeral. Slowly, she looked at the old man. It was you? Papa Okeke nodded. Tears filled Ada's eyes. But why? You barely had enough for yourself. You worked a small farm. Why would you spend all those years helping us? The old man closed his eyes for a moment before answering. Because your husband once saved my life. Years earlier, heavy rains had caused the nearby river to overflow. Papa Okeke had been swept away by the currents. Villagers watched helplessly from the riverbank, afraid to jump in. Then Ada's husband arrived. Without thinking twice, he dove into the river. The current nearly took both of them, but somehow he pulled the old man to safety. When I thanked him, Papa Okeke whispered, "He told me something I never forgot. If you truly want to repay me, help someone else when they need it." The old man smiled weakly. Then he died. I came to your house a few days later. I saw you and little Chinedu. I knew I had found the person he wanted me to help. So, before sunrise the next morning, I bought the first basket. Ada covered her mouth as tears streamed down her face. "But why didn't you ever tell me?" Papa Okeke gave a gentle laugh. "Because kindness loses nothing by staying quiet. I didn't want you to feel like you owed me. I was only finishing the promise your husband started." Ada looked down at the mountain of receipts. "You kept every one." "I wanted to remember," he said. "Not what I spent, but why I spent it." She smiled through her tears. "I stayed awake so many nights trying to find you." The old man chuckled. "I know, I saw you. I simply waited until you looked away." Silence filled the room. Then Papa Okeke reached for Ada's hand. "Promise me something." She nodded. "When you find someone carrying the same pain you once carried, don't wait for someone else to help. Become the answer to their prayer." Those were the last words he ever spoke. A peaceful smile remained on his face, and then he was gone. News spread quickly through Umudara. At Papa Okeke's funeral, Ada told the village everything. For years, people had believed a miracle had visited her home. Now, they realized the miracle had been living among them all along. Not a wealthy man, not an angel, just a quiet farmer who never forgot a debt of gratitude. Many left that day wiping tears from their eyes, not because of the mystery, but because they had mistaken ordinary kindness for something impossible. A week later, before the first rooster crowed, another set of 3 gentle knocks echoed through the village. Knock, knock, knock. A young widow opened the door of her small home. At her feet sat a woven basket filled with rice, vegetables, smoked fish, and palm oil. She looked up and down the empty path. No one was there, only the cool morning breeze. Hidden behind a nearby mango tree, Ada watched quietly. She smiled, turned away, and disappeared before anyone could thank her.